Hey guys, I'm here with Dan, aka citrus3000psi.
Hey
What's up,
guys.
man?
Hey, not much.
So I got a lot of stuff I want to ask you, but I have two questions first that are kind of easy. Where did you come up with the name citrus3000psi, and did you ever try to say it out loud before you started calling yourself that? Because it
No,
could be
that
a tongue twister.
that is like an AIM name from like probably 2000, you know, 99. And long story short, I had a orange truck with airbags that had citrus on the license plate and had a 3000 psi CO2 tank in the back, so it could hop.
Gotcha.
So no longer have that anymore, and don't really do that stuff anymore. But yeah,
Wow. So when you say the PSI tank, was that a nitrous tank? Was that
it
for
was CO2. So the truck had like airbags, it was like hydraulics.
Right, so I was gonna say, is it the hydraulics where you just you adjust the level depending on how far off-roading you're going, or is it the kind where you literally just make it hop like a Snoop Dogg video?
Hop like a Snoop Dogg.
My friend had a Cadillac like that, like an early '80s Cadillac. He did that too, and he was working on it. The shocks would sometimes pop out when he would jump too high, and he's there one time, and he's got he's working on it, and for whatever reason, the shock completely just discharged and smashed right on his wrist. And he was
Oh
pinned
shit.
underneath the car, and he had to wiggle himself in. Luckily, he had the window down and grabbed the remote and pressed the button. And he had to hop the car up off of his wrist, and then he drove himself to the hospital and had pins in his wrist for like a year.
I don't have any crazy stories like that.
That guy was, I loved that dude. He was nuts. We changed the transmission in the street in front of my house one time just because we were broke, and that's what we did back
Yeah.
then. So,
Yeah.
gotta love it. But,
Yep.
I've been seeing your name pop up on the forums for a long time now, and you've come up with some pretty awesome shit. Do you? I guess let's just start with one of the things you've worked on, and then kind of I guess go from there. The last thing, or the thing that I guess I've been seeing a lot of is the GC plug, the plug and play, do it yourself GC video solution.
Yep.
So now obviously that's Unseen designed the GC video, but from what I gather, you designed the board layout and everything, and then
Yeah.
Greg Collins, I believe, designed the 3D model for it.
Yeah. He originally started with just the plug itself, and then I made that my small little 3D model, whatever you want to call it, and then he pretty much just redesigned that to be a whole lot better. Um. So yeah, the plug is all him for sure.
So you
So
do the board design of that though, right?
yeah, yeah, correct.
Now is that something
Yeah.
you have a background in, or is that just like you fiddled around
No,
and kind of got it?
I I I like designing boards. That's probably my biggest passion. I like running traces. I don't know why, but I probably started doing it about 2 years ago. And I mean, I've been soldering before that, but really not board design.
Mhm.
And kind of I want to make things look really, really clean. So, and a lot of times you got to make a good board to not have wires run everywhere. So that's like with the internal GC mod, there's pretty much no wires on that.
Mhm.
Um, so we actually haven't told anybody yet, but there's actually a plug dual design too that we're working on right now.
Oh
That'll
wow.
output both the RGB and the HDMI.
So how are you handling the RGB on that? Is it going to be just like 8-pin DIN connector or something?
It's gonna be using it's called a high res connector. It's kind of like the smart Samsung TVs where it's got like the old Nokia connections, for power.
Yeah,
Those kind of fat, kind of two buttons on the side.
yeah.
It'll be like that. So you'll have to make your own connector. There's not going to be, HD Retrovision's not going to have one of these in stock, but you'll be able to make one pretty easily. You can buy the parts from DigiKey for the one connector, and then you can just get a female SCART.
But as
And
long
then,
as it's off the shelf, we could talk to some
yeah,
of the cable manufacturers and see if they want to whip some up for us. So
yeah, it's pretty easy. They give it's if you look the part, I can give you the part number actually if you want to know what the part number looks like. If you really want to know.
I mean, it's something I'll put in the description afterwards. But that's pretty cool. But how are you handling audio then? Because
It's
isn't it only digital out of the digital port?
it actually has a mini Toslink connector.
Oh, okay. So then
So
people could choose to either use the standard, Nintendo multi-out 3 RCA cables and get audio from there, or
yep,
they could just get digital from the mini Toslink.
yep, exactly. And I thought about putting a DAC in there to convert the digital to an analog, but there's just not enough room on the board. I'd have to increase the size, not substantially, but I made the project more for me, not for everybody else.
Yeah, and the other side of that is having if you're going to make your own cable anyway, having a SCART connector that just has dual RCA female, pigtails hanging out the back. I mean, that's it's an extra 2 minutes worth of work. So you grab the stock cables, plug it right in.
Well, there's no actual analog audio coming out of it, though.
No, I meant just using the regular GameCube, Nintendo multi-out.
Yeah.
Have the audio come out of there, and actually having the audio and video separated. If you're doing C-sync and not anything else, there's no interference in any of the lines. You won't even get audio buzz. So it's not as elegant as having everything in one perfect solid cable, but it's at the end of the day, it's the most functional and probably the easiest and saves people money in the long run.
Yeah, there's also coax audio too, or coaxial, that's in the mini plug and in the high-ros connector.
Oh, so really?
So depending on how you wire it, you could do a whole bunch of different stuff.
Interesting.
So
how did you get started in any of this stuff? I mean, were you just like a tinkerer as a kid? Do you have any electronics background at all? Do you build hydraulic cars for a living, and this is just a fun thing on the side?
I did mechanical engineering. I have a garage full of tools, welders, and all that. I actually have a car that I did track days with, and rebuilt motors and did all that. So that's kind of been. I've always been someone that takes stuff apart. And when I was younger, I was always take stuff apart and never put it back together. And now I can I don't want to say I can fix anything, but that's kind of just what I do. Handyman.
Spend more time putting things back together than you do taking them apart.
So
what kind of car did you do? Did you race?
It was a Acura Integra Type R.
Nice, very nice. So, did you do? I'm assuming track days. You're doing drag racing and not circle racing or anything.
No, it was road course.
Oh,
okay. So I've been to like VIR, Virginia, and I blew the car up 2 years ago in Road America. Back straight. Car just got too hot and spun a bearing. And I really haven't. I don't want to say I haven't touched it since, but that's the truth. There's no motor in it currently. So.
I used to love racing so much, and I never got into watching it, but like on TV, but actually doing it or being there. And then I just started to realize the same thing. Once I passed like 16, 17, everybody who was winning had the most money.
Yeah.
So when you're a kid and you all have the same piece of shit that you're trying to drag race or road race or anything else, like it really is who's a better driver. And then as soon as I saw my older friends, as soon as they hit like, adult age, where especially like, people who had jobs but no kids, it's, you can have the best racer and the guy who built the best car, but if somebody spent more money and they have a 1,000 horsepower engine, you're screwed. So
yeah. Well, these were more just track days. So like, some people did times, but you can just go out there and just run around the track. And if you get on the track late, that's fine. It's just kind of, it's real. I don't want to say peaceful, but it is kind of peaceful in a way for what it can sound like.
I mean, just to fire it up and go crazy and not have to worry about getting arrested is always nice. I mean, that was, when I was a kid, that was half the thrill. And then once I started to get older, it started to really take away from things, because it's like, like I'm an adult now. This isn't. We're gonna bring you home to your parents and slap a fine. This is like go to jail. So it's just to be able to go out there and still get the adrenaline rush without the without the thought of getting locked up is always a big plus.
Yeah, it's a good thing I didn't have a fast car growing up when I was 16, 17. I definitely would have done some not so fun stuff, but piece of shit S10 with I don't know whatever motor that was. Some 4.3 was slow as piss.
Yeah, I like those though. I had a 79 Camaro that was a total piece of shit, but man, I love that thing.
Yeah.
Those things, I think, from the factory came with like 120 horsepower. And they weighed like 3,000 pounds or something. So luckily, the guy that I bought it from had put a different motor in, and I kept trying to rebuild it until I just blew the piss out of it, and then eventually I had to go get something different. But
yeah,
love that stuff.
Cool.
So, but mechanical engineering, that's what you do for your day job then? Or?
No, I've never actually went into that.
You just did it in school and then moved right along?
Yeah, well, I've always had one of my first jobs was like IT tech support, so I've always been on a computer since I was young.
Gotcha.
and then I got into programming, so now I pretty much just do software development and kind of work for a smaller company, run their website, do a lot of admin type stuff, that system admins do, database design and all that kind of whatever.
Yeah, it's funny though. No matter what tech I've learned, I've always applied some of those skills to a different part of the tech field, and even if in ways that I never would have thought. Like, I'm sure your mechanical engineering background, in the weirdest ways, probably pops up here and there for your day job too. So
yeah. So, but yeah, what got me started with all the video game stuff was that PVM back there behind me. And then I think I just modded one RGB console, and then I kind of got obsessed with the best of the best, and then that kind of just...
Yeah, it's a rat hole. It's very easy to go down that way, too. Once you see what can be done, and, you do it on your favorite console, and then you're like, all right, well, I'm not going to bother with the consoles that aren't my favorite, and then there's just... You can't go back anymore. Try playing anything in composite video. I RGB modded a CDI. It's the worst system on the planet, but I still had to try it out in RGB. So.
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah, I mean, and so now I'm kind of last, I don't know, year or so, got into video scalers. So I've got a couple DVDO machines and a Cristalio, or however you say that. And but I it's bad because I don't really use them. I don't really take advantage of them. They more just sit on the shelf, and I spend more. And when I want to play a game, I spend more time trying to get it set up perfectly than versus just playing it.
Yeah, I started to realize that I think most of the time I have more fun playing around with making stuff look better than actually playing the game in many cases. I mean, I still have my favorites, of course, but yeah. The scalers come in handy. Those aren't something that I use every day, but I'm glad I picked up a bunch of those, and it's the most random times when you would expect it to come in handy. Like, I was talking to somebody the other day about using it. They had one scaler that they were able to take an S-Video VHS tape and do digital conversion through a different type of scaler. But they got that it was a long process on why you would even need that and not just do it direct, but they ended up with something a lot quicker and a lot better, and just because they had a pile of those scalers lying around.
Yeah.
So, I guess your focus in the last year has really been GameCube and Wii, right?
Yeah, I just, I didn't like what the current GameCube HDMI output was. I mean, I have that Pluto board, and I wired one up, and just didn't like the way it was just like a rat's nest when you get all the wires in there. Even if you use that 3D plug in the back, it just, I know what it looks like on the inside, and I wasn't happy with that. So I kind of started with one method and kind of just grew from there and just kept revising that design. So
the last design that you had kind of sits over the circuit board, and you connect it that way, right?
Yeah, I actually have the one I built last night with the final prototype.
Oh, the one you just posted on Shmups. So there's really there's pretty much no wires, right?
Yeah, there's one wire that goes to the pad connector.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, that's coming in real clear too.
So,
wow, no, that's what I'm talking about. That's the dual plug version, right?
Yep. So you can get RGB on the multi-out, and it's got different paths to jump the sync to whatever line you want. So you could put it on Luma if you wanted to, or Chroma if you really wanted to. I don't know why you would do that, but you have the option.
I would think that in most scenarios, because this is something I talked about with a couple of different people that were trying to come up with one of these solutions. In almost every scenario, having it on the C-sync pin, which is completely unused in the US versions anyway, right?
Yeah.
Most people who use GameCubes in our community end up using a SCART cable anyway, just because they already have all the equipment. I mean, I can't stand SCART. It's the only way to really take care of it all at the moment. So even through 480p, having RGBS is actually easier because they already have all the equipment designed for that, especially people that use PVMs and stuff. And to go from RGBS to RGB HV, it's like, as long as you don't need any centering controls, it's a $10 Extron box. So, overall, that would probably be the best idea overall, because you could just use a SNES SCART cable and be done with it.
Well, how it's set up is there's a grid of not test points, but a grid of interconnects. So you could actually wire HV to the Chroma and Luma if you wanted to, and you can make like a VGA cable from the multi-out if you wanted to. with no wires.
That is actually pretty cool. And then you would just obviously cut the chroma and the lines on that.
Yeah, you definitely have to cut those before you place that board in, or assuming they're on the bottom side of the motherboard. But yeah, so really it's kind of just an easy solution for everybody. That way no one can complain. I don't have XX, and I put test points out there too for all the lines if you want to do whatever you want to do. I mean, it's kind of, the world is yours. And
the available outputs, I guess, are RGBS, RGBHV, and is there a component on there as well?
Yeah, and then also in that 2.4, he added sync on green. Unseen did.
Oh yeah, that's right. So people, actually, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so you could actually make a cable that just has three, red, green, blue, and you can make that component or RGB if you didn't want to do a SCART cable or something like that.
Interesting. So there really is a solution for everybody then.
Yeah.
Now these can output digital and analog at the exact same time, right?
No, they can.
They can, yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You could have, because when this GameCube video solution was first announced, the thing that everybody that I talked to was really excited about were the Twitch streamers and anybody that kind of does events like this, because you could have whatever you're gaming on your CRT, and then have it HDMI out to to a capture card or to a big projector or something on the stream. So that was a pretty huge deal for a lot of people that really are serious Twitch streamers. So that's pretty awesome.
And you could plug in component cables and have three-way, or maybe when that dual plug board goes in, you could actually have 4 outputs.
That's pretty crazy. I didn't even think of that.
I don't know why you'd ever want to do that, but I guess it's a possibility.
I'm sure somebody would find a need for that somehow. But yeah. So now you post all of your designs as open source, right?
Most of them, yeah.
Well, at least most of these so far.
Yeah.
So I guess you're offering installation services every time you have enough boards to install them. But generally speaking, what's the best way for people to get your GCVideo stuff? Just contact you and
just message me. I mean, it seems like a lot of people that wanted the HDMI only have got it. At least they've messaged me, and I've done those installs. I think some people are trying to make their own. More power to them. I will probably. It seems like there was a lot of interest for the internal dual board, so I'm going to do a batch of like 25, 30, and either sell them as kits. I'm trying to make a test jig right now that'll allow me to test those boards in this little connector, so I'll be able to plug them in and spring load the little boards in, and hopefully it'll allow me to test it without actually installing one, because that's kind of I don't really have a good way of doing that without. Right now, my only way of testing is installing it and see if it works. My fail rate's low, but it happens. I mean, sometimes, it happens. So
it's not a simple board. It's not like you have a dumb IC like a video amp and some resistors. You have stuff that needs to be programmed on there. So there's a lot of room for error. That's not your fault at all. So being able to test them is important.
And then I know people will get them, and then it won't work, and then I mean, there's always a thing. Well, I guess the board may not work, and I don't want people to get a defective board, and then they're sitting there trying to get it to work, and it kind of gives me more of a little bit of insurance, I guess. So
yeah, it kind of everybody wins. So.
Yeah.
So I guess for the dual board installation, I would call that's much more of an advanced installation than like a basic RGB amp for a Super Nintendo or something, right?
Yeah, it's actually really not terribly difficult. You just pretty much have to desolder a little bit with some braid around the pins for the digital out connector on the bottom. Just a few of those, and then on the analog side as well, and then that QSB will just sit right on top. And then so you just have to solder in the holes. Now you got to have a good tip that'll get into those holes and get the solder to flow down. But really, it's other than that.
Or just a good desoldering gun, right?
Well, no, I mean like once the.
Once it's on, in order to get the solder to flow in. Gotcha.
Yeah,
I'm sure flux is a major help with something like that. So.
Yeah, but you want to make sure that the solder gets down in the pins, and every once in a while you'll get one where, I actually check each one continuity through the plug, through the digital port to the top to make sure that I get connections through all the way. But every once in a while I got one that had some scratchy audio and ended up that I think one of the plugs was barely making contact. and I had to reflow those. So even though if they look good, they may still, require some more love.
Gotcha. And to hold the HDMI port in place, those are Greg's 3D printed designs, right?
No.
Oh, really?
No, it's this little HDMI connector sits. There's a little catch in the back of the GameCube. I don't. It's like a little plastic. I don't know what it's for, honestly. Unseen actually said he thought it was for the ribbon cable for the CD-ROM to come out. Mm-hmm. And I actually wondered if they actually had a full-size DVD in the GameCube at some point, and then went down to a smaller one, because the ribbon cable never touches this like little plastic hold mechanism. Mm-hmm. Anyways, this little PCB fits directly into that spot.
Gotcha.
And then there's a little screw hole where you screw it into that plastic part, file out the back, and then it just sits right there.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, there's no...
So is there like a space around it then, or does it fit tight into the...
Fits perfect.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
So yeah, it's got little sides that go up, so it can't... I actually probably have a piece somewhere buried back in a GameCube area, but it'd probably take me a couple minutes to find it.
Nah, it's no big deal.
But yeah, it fits really well.
Now, have you tested, or I've seen your prototypes of the Wii solutions as well.
Yeah. It's mostly the QSB that I'm fighting with. I should have had proto boards already, but I had issues with Osh Park and said they'd deliver, but I never got them, so they sent me some more out, when that happens. But I've kind of jumped back from the BGA design to not the BGA design, where I was able to get tiny enough holes to solder to the vias. Going to a flex cable, it's more just dealing with the upfront cost and that, and me having zero knowledge about what a flex cable should look like other than seeing Marshalls and Tim's. And it's like, am I sending the right stuff? I don't know what the fab house really needs. And
apparently Marshall had a bunch of trouble with a few batches of his, even midway through the life cycle of the Ultra HDMI.
Oh, really? And
yeah,
I know
so
that,
it's not like it's a first run mistake. Like, he ordered it, and I didn't speak directly to Marshall, so I might be getting this wrong. But I think he, one of the mid orders he's done, he received them and they were bad. He had to ship them back and wait for a new one.
Huh. And I know that obviously Mega had some issues with whatever his cables were. So it's something that I've designed a flex cable. I don't know if it would even meet production standards or what, but so it's kind of, I'm trying to kind of just go with the QSB route. Now, the only negative to that is it's only going to work with the one version of the Wii, which is the second revision.
But does that still have GameCube support?
Yes. It's pretty much, there's pretty much two major board revisions, and it's in the later life cycle. It's pretty much, if it's a colored GameCube with the port, so it would be the black or the red GameCube with the ports, it'll work.
Awesome.
Now obviously there's white ones as well, but that's
way harder to find.
Yeah, I mean, you're not guaranteed to get one unless you get someone to open the battery compartment and measure, or I mean, not measure. There's a way to see the model number through the CR32 battery, whatever it is.
Gotcha.
So
have you done testing where, I know a lot of people want to debate how big the difference is, but there is definitely a difference in certain Wii revisions where you get better quality video. Would going to a full digital solution just, make all of that irrelevant because it's full digital, so they'd all be the same?
I would think so. Now, the later revision Wii's have the better video quality, so I guess that takes care of that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Now that I said that out loud, I realized it didn't really matter at that point anyway, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. So would you be able to install this with a different type of board, like if you were going to do a wire-to-wire installation on any version of the Wii then?
Yeah, there is. I did put pads on it, so you can wire straight to the to that AVE chip. If you wanted to.
Small chip. That is not a beginner soldering lesson right there.
It's however, the QSB would make it easier because it's a permanent thing to solder to. Because I've soldered the Pluto. I first did a Pluto to a Wii just as a test, and I don't want to say that was difficult, but just the way the the Pluto can kind of move around when you're soldering it, kind of becomes a hassle.
Yeah.
So, and this placement of the QSB will put the lines extremely close to the AVE, so you'd have super short lines and wouldn't have to worry about any loss. So.
And with the Wii, I would assume that the stock output still works as well, right?
Well, that's kind of, yes, sort of, kind of. Depends what you want to do with it, because to be able to, when you switch to component video, or when you jump the pin to say that a component plug is plugged in, you lose composite output. So if you want 480p output, you lose composite. There's some logic with that. So the GCVideo actually does something a little different than Wii, as it can control that pin.
Oh wow!
So you can actually tell the GCVideo to do only 480i, for example, not 480p.
So could you do component 480p and HDMI 480p?
Yes, but now the issue is both cables really aren't going to fit together where the HDMI plug is. They might if you were to cut down some of the outer, plastic on the cables.
On the cable itself, not in the
yeah.
Wii. So the only, from what I've seen in your pictures, there's no cutting on the GameCube, and on the Wii, there's just a small little cut for the micro or mini HDMI.
Well, there is cutting on the GameCube.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, to get.
Oh wait, no, that's right. Your HDMI solution, it's the Pluto one fits in the digital port.
Right.
Yeah, yours goes right in there. Okay.
Now you could easily design a 3D printed thing and remove the digital port if you wanted to. I mean, that's definitely an option. I like to keep it looking as factory as possible. I mean, I guess I'm putting a hole in the GameCube, but
I mean, if people have the choice, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
It's just for. I see a lot of times mods could be done without cutting at all, and people never get the choice because the console's just up for sale. There's so many guys that do Master System AV mods, and every time I see one, I just get so annoyed. The last guys I saw that did that, I just said, hey, why'd you cut all the holes? You could just buy like a $4 cable and get composite video, right? They're like, yeah, but it's easier for people. All right, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the 5 RCA jacks coming out the back. That's not really my thing. So I mean, so there's a little bit of cutting on the Wii, but not much, and that's why I didn't want to move the HDMI connector far over. I wanted to keep it right on the QSB just to keep things simple.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you obviously could just do both of these mods. You don't have to just do HDMI. You could just do RGB only with the GC Dual, and just omit the HDMI portion, and it'll work fine.
How much is were you planning on selling the board for?
Probably for the Dual, maybe 120.
Yeah, at that point, it's still cheaper than the component video cable, but it's my opinion of if you have the option, why not just have both?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying if you didn't want to cut your board or you weren't going to use it, I mean, it's up to you. But that's the same thing with the Wii. You could just not install the or have the HDMI connector not installed, and then you want to cut the Wii at all, and you'd have RGB output because the RGB will go to the multi-out.
That's right. I completely forgot that board on the Wii enables RGB even for US consoles, right?
Yeah,
that's
correct.
Pretty awesome.
And it'll do all the line doubling and all that, so you can do 240p to 480 if you want to, if you choose to. So really, you could do like 960p with an OSCC, or you could do 720, with 240, kind of whatever floats your boat, I guess. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that's very cool. I can't wait to play around with that one. I've seen so many actually really great comparisons of Wii versus Wii U. And it was very disappointing to see how the Wii U handled Wii games.
Yeah.
So I'm really even more excited now to do a comparison of like a 480p Wii game through HDMI versus the same game on the Wii U in both 480p and then upscale just to see. But this is cool. That, and no one likes waiting the 10 minutes for the Wii Virtual Console on the Wii U, whatever you want to call it, to boot up. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people want it for the Virtual Console, though. I think they're trying to upscale that, or I've never actually really done too much of the virtual console on the Wii, just because I have all the original consoles. So if I'm trying to play NES, I just pull on my NES or.
So what I've found, a lot of people who are just getting their feet wet back into playing classic games love the virtual console, or people that, they have a Super Nintendo and they have a Nintendo, but they never really get into Genesis, but they want to play Sonic.
Yeah.
Virtual console's kind of perfect for that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I'm an avid collector, but I mean, I got a shelf of 25 consoles over here, so I mean, my wife hates me.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I've cleared out almost all of my extras, but I had at least 2 of everything for a while, just because it was, what's that saying? 2 is 1 and 1 is none.
Yeah.
It never failed. Whenever I was going to do something, if I only had one console, something would get screwed up. And so it's always nice to have more than one. But
yeah.
But that's because I run the website. It's not something I would recommend a normal person have 2 of every console. But if you plan a weekend and your friends are coming over and you're going to do a project and the thing that you're working on dies, then that's ruins the weekend. So
yeah.
So the other thing that you were working on that I absolutely thought was awesome was the PS2 C-sync mods.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I was talking to Steve from HD Retrovision. At least a year ago, probably more. And I was thinking about it from a completely different perspective. How could we build some kind of sync stripper and a SCART head? And, I talked to Steve for a while about it, and then he said something about, why don't you just disable it on the board? I'm like, I must not have grasped what he was saying, because my brain was still focused on something else. I was like, what? No, I don't know. Never mind. And then when you came back around with that, I was like, fuck, that's right. You could do that. So I guess let's just talk about that for a little while for people that don't really understand what that might be. So the PlayStation on the multi-out doesn't output C-sync. It only outputs Luma or composite video, which for 240p and 480i, it's fine in 99% of the solutions, situations. The only problem is when you have equipment that requires C-sync. So you would need a sync stripper. And one of the things that requires C-sync is an Extron RXI box, which brings us to the other part. When you go to 480p mode, you could just use component video, but if your equipment doesn't handle it, if you need no converters, whatever else, it's a pain. So you could use sync on green, so you could use that same RGB cable, and you could even have these converters, like the Extrons, to strip it. But now you're required to have a sync stripper in the cable and a sync on green box like the Extrons or something. So no matter what you do, you need more equipment, and it's a gigantic pain. So what I gather you did, and you're definitely going to have to explain this probably twice for me. One of the mods on the board disables sync on green, and then the other mod removes either Luma or composite video going to the multi-out and puts C-sync there. So all resolutions have C-sync, including 480p, so no other thing is necessary. Did I get that right?
Yep, you sounded pretty good.
Okay. So let's start with disabling sync on green. What is it that you do that does that? Is it removing, adding, jumping something?
Well, there's 2 different reversions of the PS2. So pretty much anything before or any 3000X after, before, has 2 DACs. It takes the digital RGB signals, the 24-bit RGB, and converts it to just RGB, the three colors, and then passes to another DAC, which converts it to the composite video, the sync on green, all that stuff. So that chip has a pin where you can ground that will disable sync on green. So that's the easiest way to do that for those models, the 3000X Plus, which I think you did a couple weekends ago.
Yeah, that mod worked great, but then everything else was a ridiculous disaster. It had nothing to do with that mod. We were just trying to do 3 or 4 things at once, and then the dominoes fell and none of them work anymore. So it's 5 minutes on each console to get it back, but we were so frustrated we just left. But that mod did work.
Yeah.
When you do that, though, that disables the flow of composite video to that multi-out pin, correct?
No, that's only for the models that are like 3009X and after are different.
Okay.
So there's an actual pin on the earlier models where you can just disable sync on green, and C-sync still flows through everything.
Okay.
So that actually is, I don't want to say that would be the preferred model, but that would be the preferred model if you wanted to have all existing S-Video and composite all work perfectly along with RGB and get 480p RGBS.
So this is 100% opinion, but as somebody that screws around with all this stuff constantly, if I had to disable Luma in order for RGB to work, meaning whatever you do, you remove the capacitor, you cut a trace, you completely kill S-Video, but as a result, you could gain clean RGB in all scenarios. That is a perfectly great trade-off.
Oh, for sure.
S-Video is a dying format, whether we like it or not. It's not supported on any TV I've had in the past 5 years. But composite video is going to be around forever. It's the backup default analog solution, and I wouldn't need it for anything other than testing. It's so easy to grab anything with composite video, plug it in, and make sure something works. So the only reason I kept asking the question, and I'm still going to continue asking the question in this interview, is just simply for that reason. Everybody who plays with these things has probably got a composite video cable, and it's easier to have that. So in the models where you disable it, could you even do something like just solder to the points on the motherboard, drill a hole, and put an RCA connector for composite video? Or when you, on those later models, when you disable that chip that does sync on green, you're also disabling the composite video, right?
Yeah, correct.
All right. So
the easiest way would be to wire a switch in, so you can pass C-sync to the DAC or not on the later models, which is what I did for how I kind of come to these situations. Some guy, or I have a person named Derek who I kind of do some work for, and he sent me a PS1 to put C-sync because he likes C-sync on all of this stuff, which is rightfully so. So I did that, and then he said, hey, can we do this on the PS2? And I kind of looked up online, because everyone wants a price, what it's going to take to do this. And I look online, this one guy's like, oh, it looks pretty easy, you just disable this and do that. Well, I get his PS2, and it's totally different. And I'm just like, shit, I gotta pull out the scope and start checking things out, and that's where I kind of just figured out, hey, just remove C-sync from the DAC and you won't get sync on green, and just pass that straight to the multi-out, and you got pure C-sync. But then I also was like, I added a switch in so he could pass C-sync back to the DAC to get composite video if he wanted to.
Gotcha. So on the model that I saw, and by the way, I had two slim 7012s. Yeah. Completely different boards inside. So it was weird. I took pictures. I'll send them over to you. It was very surprising when I opened up the second one.
I think the models that I listed, because I only listed models that I found service manuals for. So I didn't have, I don't have a plethora of PS2s. I actually only have one, which is a 3900 PS2 or 39,000 or whatever model it is. But I looked up the other things just to kind of try and make it, I don't know, more for everybody, I guess.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so I didn't have any plans for the 9000. But I know someone did do the 9000 X recently. They put it on, I think maybe PSX Scene. They listed that they were able to do it on that one. So I don't know how close the board is to that.
So in that scenario though, with those boards, so you remove C-sync, go into that chip that does the sync on green composite video conversion. You remove that resistor, then you jump that, or then you would also remove the capacitor on the, let's just say, the Luma output. So you want to make Luma C-sync, and that disables the signal going. So you could just at that point then use a dual 2-pole switch. So the ones that have 3 and 3. And hook C-sync up to one side and hook the that cap up, and you could actually toggle between composite videos off but Luma's on. Composite videos off but RGBS on the Luma pin, and you toggle that switch back and it goes back to the way it was before the mod.
Right.
That's awesome.
No. Well, hold on. The Luma was always out of the mix. It was because if you pull the cap on the Luma, so Luma's never going to come back. Luma's always going to have C-sync. The resistor disc allows you to get composite video, the switch allows you to get composite video back.
Well, if you're using a dual pole switch, so the ones with 6, 3, and 3.
Oh then you could do that.
Actually have that on the second one. So the first one toggles C-sync between directly to the multi-out or through that, through the DAC, and the second one would connect to that final capacitor. I would just recommend getting, probably just through-hole components, a resistor and a cap to put on that switch, so you don't have to work with the little. Yeah, that's awesome. I gotta go back and do that one, and then maybe that would be small enough to actually mount it somewhere nicely inside the PS2 Slim's case, even if it's just a little hole on the bottom where you reach in. But and that the other reason I'm being so anal about all these things is because we as nerds have only been modding these consoles since they've been out, which is not a very long time, and humans in general tend to think very small. And even though it's only been a couple of years, 10, 20 years, I've already seen people get consoles and they look at them and it doesn't work right away and they're like, oh, it's junk, throw it out. And then you open it up and it's a really well done mod inside, and it was done great for a specific reason, but no one marked the console, no one knew, so you thought it was broken. So to have a switch and to just take one of those Dymo labelers and put something on the back that says, this way for stock, this way for RGBS, like that would solve, when our grandkids pick up this thing, like, hey, what's this? How come I can't make this appear in my virtual reality helmet? Oh, well, son, you gotta flip the switch and plug it in, and it's like, so. Yeah, that's awesome. So basically, on every model PS2, then you might need a switch of some sorts, but you could actually do this. So you have RGBS or flick a switch to back to normal for people that need it. Mm-hmm. That's really awesome. And I guess you checked it with your oscilloscope, and as long as you continue to, because it's TTL full voltage sync coming off the board, goes through that 470 ohm resistor. So, and it's pretty much the same on all of them, right?
It's 3.3 volt TTL. It's because there's 5 volt TTL too.
But dropping it through that resistor then takes care of that, and then it's just the standard C-sync voltage.
Yep. So
it's a very cool mod.
Yeah, so you don't need any resistor in the line or anything like that. So all the cables that you get from Retro Access or Retro Gaming cables will work just fine.
Perfect. The only thing with this is, in my opinion, and I was just talking to Corey about this. I'm definitely no longer a beginner, but I don't know how far past beginner I would call myself. Nowhere near an expert, definitely not a beginner. I don't even know if I would be called intermediate, but there are certain mods that I think that anybody can do, like that, the SNES Mini 7374 mod. If you just want RGB, you slap something over some pins, throw some solder on it, you put 4 wires through vias. It's, it's probably a 2-hour job for somebody that's never done it before. It's a 10-minute job if you're good at these things. Working on PS2s is a lot harder. At the very least, there's a lot more to disassemble and reassemble.
Yeah. I mean, it probably would have been easier to cut traces on this than start pulling parts. I mean, SMD caps aren't the easiest thing to pull if you don't have a hot air rework station, hot air. You can pull them by kind of heating one side up and pulling, and heating the other side up and pulling, but it's not
how I do it, yeah.
But you have a chance of breaking, because those SMD caps, the bottom pads are so big, it's easy to possibly pull a trace up or pull part of the trace up. So on some cases, it might have been easier for a user to cut a trace, versus pulling. But I like pulling parts just because it leaves the board. So I like being able to go back if need be. And really, my PS2 is modded. I'm never going to put it back, but I guess I have the power to put it back and make it look factory. And I don't know why I like that, but I do. Yeah,
I get a lot of people politely questioning my stance on that, and I seriously doubt I'm ever going to say, okay, well, I'm turning into a collector, so I'm going to go put all my consoles exactly back to the way they were. It's more along the lines of when the next mod comes out. When we come out with the 8K mod for the PS2, but those components that we removed have to be in for that to work. It's just a matter of going on DigiKey, ordering a couple of surface mount parts, getting your tweezers out, soldering it up, bam, back to normal. Now we can go do the next mod that comes out without worrying about, you haven't ruined your console. You don't have to toss it and get the next one. So that's why I'm always a fan of being able to put it back. And that's why I always avoid cutting plastic whenever I possibly could. So
yeah.
Well, so I have a bunch of PS2s at the office. When I get back there and I have time, I'm going to mess with it and try to take some pictures. But I guess if anybody's watching tries them, take good... I mean, you only need a cell phone, but take good quality pictures of the mod. Because the most common thing is putting up those diagrams in the service manuals are good for people that know what those are and what to look for. But I do like having basic pictures. So, click on your model number and just, an MS Paint, circle a component in red. There you go.
Then you can see how people wire or run their wires around and stuff like that. Makes it easier. It's easier to copy than it is to do your own thing, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
So
in messing with this, have you seen any issue with the placement of the C-sync wire? Because I mean, I've seen things before where if you run it too close to something else, you get some weirdness, some weird kind of coupling. Almost like if you use unshielded cables with composite video next to sync or, something like that.
I will say that first model I did for Derek where I put a switch in, the switch didn't totally isolate both prongs.
Wow.
I was pretty surprised. And my finger added enough, whatever you want to call to it, to create a nice green bar when you held the switch. So, so I actually had to get a different switch that, didn't do that. but it was quite interesting.
Oh, I always love silly shit like that. You never know what you're going to run into. So.
Yeah, I mean, so, but for stuff like that, I try to use braided line. Not single core. I mean.
Yeah, especially when you're going to a switch, because now you have all these antennas, right? You have it from the output to the switch, from the switch back to here. I mean, there's, now you have lots of different antennas radiating signal around and picking up interference. So if there's any way to shield it, I would always try that. Sometimes it really doesn't matter at all, but anytime you mess with like subcarrier stuff like that, if like doing SMS mods, I'm always busting Voltar's balls about that, because he'll very elegantly run a wire all around the entire trace of the board because it's not near any components that radiate. And why don't you just use a thick-ass shielded cable? Well, there's no need. You just put it over here. So, yeah, it's whatever's the easiest overall is my favorite choice. So,
yeah, and if it works, if it works, it works.
If it works and it's not going to hurt anything, who cares?
Yeah,
but
yeah, and it looks good.
So what other stuff have you been working on? Is there anything else you could talk about, or is this do you have some stuff in the wraps that you want to wait to unveil?
No, not really. I mean, I have a lot of unfinished projects. That's kind of I kind of backed up. I have a Dreamcast HDMI using Chris 2000.
Right, yeah.
I designed a board and have a QSB and all that. It's just 100% untested.
Now, did you use wasn't he going for remove the power board so you could place everything there and then use that output?
No,
or did you use the one that goes underneath?
This goes underneath, so nothing. You don't have to remove the power. Not that I wouldn't want to remove the power, but I don't know. My power supply works pretty good, I guess. So, but I also have a USB GD-ROM, so psi or space is not too much an issue. But the QSB sits on top, and then should run an FCC cable below the board where the actual FPGA will sit flush on the bottom of the console. Mm-hmm. So someone I think has built it. Because some people, they see it on my GitHub or not GitHub, they see it on my OSHA Park, and then now they're like, have you tried this? No, but you're welcome to try it. Let me know if it works.
Yeah.
So he hasn't said if it works yet. I mean, I hope it does, but.
So have you installed it at all yet and tried it?
No, I haven't even ordered a board. I was kind of, I was taking on too many projects and nothing was getting finished. Let's put it that way. So I needed to kind of get back and prioritize what I was doing to actually, get that done.
But I was really curious how he was handling the processing of the image because doesn't the Dreamcast display in a VESA format and not a digital TV format? So you're always going to get some kind of weird issues.
He fixed it in his latest revision,
really?
and he line doubles some stuff. So
Line doubles, so you could have 960p coming through it.
No, it was the 480i line doubled, so probably the Bob. Deinterlacing the kind of quick, because I know it's zero lag, but he redesigned it to fix that VESA problem or that VESA problem. So because I think there's a little bit of a frame buffer on that FPGA he's using. There's enough for him to do some type of buffering, but he fixed that.
That is pretty awesome.
So the only thing I'm not sure though is there's some games that don't output or only output composite. So because there's certain games that will obviously output VGA, and there's certain games that will output RGB, and there's certain ones that will only output composite.
There was a Street Fighter Third Strike US edition or something that wouldn't output RGB or VGA or something like that.
Yeah. So I'm not really sure on those because I know he's taking the 8-bit RGB lines, or the 24-bit RGB digital lines and putting them to his thing, but I don't know when that whole when the Dreamcast decides hey, I'm only going to output composite. I don't know how all that works, or if that intercepts that before that logic comes into play. So it may output all, or it may not output. It may only work with VGA games. I really don't know. I haven't really done that much research into it.
I know a lot of people that are obsessed with using the original disc no matter what, but I don't really give a shit about any of that. In fact, there are many games that I own and have always owned that, sometimes I'll use a fan patch in a ROM, or, like the 480p patches and burn a disc, or, use the GDMU or something. I think everybody's got to make a compromise, right? So if you get the awesomeness of a straight HDMI output, I think that's pretty cool. So now that's digital to digital, right? That's not analog to digital.
Yeah, digital. So, and I don't know. Ozone was supposedly had an all-in-one board, and he kind of just disappeared. I don't know what happened to his. His looked pretty promising. He had an OSD and all that stuff, but I haven't heard from him in I don't know, maybe a year.
Yeah, I still talk to him. Not as much as I used to, but I still talk to him on a regular basis. And I think a lot of his projects stalled because there were partnerships and other people's lives got busy and they just kind of slowed down. So I was really looking forward to some of the stuff that he was putting out, because some of the ideas that he talked about that he didn't even really tell anybody yet. He was approaching it in a really cool way, and I was really looking forward to seeing. Yeah, because
he made it. Yeah, he made it sound like it was going to be able to be dropped into a Genesis or I don't know, just a lot of other consoles pretty easily with just minor revisions, which kind of got me excited. But
yeah, I think he's looking for some help on that, so I could certainly make the introduction if you wanted. But
he's way above my pay grade. I would only hold him down. I do plan to maybe do some PS2 research on getting RGB out. Pretty much, I don't want to say reversing what Chris did for the Dreamcast, but it should be very, very similar.
You mean just HDMI on the PS2?
Yeah. It should be a matter of just getting the clock work figured out and getting the clock dividers to output the right, signal and all that. But my Verilog is very minimal. I've tried to read them, and I honestly need to get on a small project that I want to do that I can succeed at. So, but when I get time and all that, but I still have other projects working on. Remember that whole CDI adapter, pad adapter?
That's right. Yeah.
I've got all the parts and everything here. You just got to put it together and try it.
And which did you use for that? Which controller? I forgot all about that.
It was just going to be for. I've got a PC controller I was going to use, but I think it'll work with a SNES though, as well.
Gotcha.
But I just, there are
other
stuff.
Those CDI controllers are I think they're averaging $85 a piece on eBay or something like that. So as long as whatever you sold was around $20 or $30, if anybody wants to play a CDI, that's certainly a way better way to go about that.
I really want to get a Nuon controller and try and reverse that. because those are $300 now.
What's the Nuon controller?
The Nuon, the DVD player.
Oh, okay.
It plays like Tempest 3000.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's that weird Atari DVD, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But controllers like disappeared, and I actually had a Nuon DVD player for the longest time, but never could get a controller for it. Never can find them, and now they're Actually, there's a few on eBay, but people are. There's actually another asking. They're selling for $300 for a crappy Logitech. So I don't know. If people threw them all away in the dumpster and there's only 50 out there anymore, I don't know. But but I'd like to get one, but I'm not going to pay $300 for a controller for me to tear apart.
If you were to get one of those, would it be like destroyed in the process, or is it something that you could put back together when you were done?
I would try and put it back together, but it's more. See, I don't know. There's a chip on there called Nuon. I've seen the board layout. And I don't know really what that chip does. I'm guessing it's pretty close to probably a USB protocol. Would be my guess. Because why would they spend all that effort to try and reinvent the wheel? But
and how would you even go about reverse engineering? Do you have like a logic analyzer or something, or scope?
Yeah. Just go with analyzer and just see what it all does, and then see if you can't mimic that with an FPGA or a Adreno or something like that with some microcontroller, whatever.
Yeah, it's way above my head. I can grasp the concepts really well, but it would take forever for me to figure that out, I think. But that's cool stuff. We hit your GCVideo stuff. We hit PlayStation 2, the CDI controller adapter. I feel like there was something else, though. Weren't you working on something else over the course of time?
I don't know. I've got I'm working on a Toslink customer right now for a PlayStation first gen, launch model with the plugs in the back. I don't think that's been done. So I've been working on that.
I bought the components to do that because I think any console that has that one chip in it, you could put, the Toslink mod. And I bought one for a 3DO, I bought one for my Saturn and something else. I just never had time to install any of those.
Yeah, I've been trying to get one to work in the Jaguar. The Jaguar outputs some weird signals, and I have so far been unsuccessful. And I actually really want to get the N64 to work as well. I've tried to contact Marshall to be like, hey, can your HDMI mod output Toslink too? But he has, because I have my RGB, the RGB and dual HDMI mod on that, so I like to be able to get Toslink if I'm doing, RGB out of that. But he hasn't replied. Don't expect
a response from Marshall. Yeah. I wish my OCD wasn't the way it was, because I would love to be able to walk away from my inbox for a month and come back and be like, okay, anything before today isn't important. Let's just forget about that. Let's just, I can't do it. I don't know how he does it. I know he gets swamped and overwhelmed, but if I ever opened up my phone and saw like 1,000 missed emails, I'd probably just throw my phone out, and I couldn't. I don't know. But I talked to him once for like half a second, and he said he was going to come on the podcast, and that was it. It was like a year and a half ago. So.
Huh. Yeah, I'm assuming it's got to be possible. He's converting the digital signals in there. I would think that he could easily pass Toslink out, but I don't know. It's so I'm looking to try and to mod that, but it's kind of an issue with the master clock and putting your own clock in, and the N64 kind of has some weird audio stuff.
Well, you mean like an RGB N64 with a Toslink output?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Because I was going to say, even if you needed it separated on the Ultra HDMI, you could just buy a cheap dongle that splits HDMI to whatever.
Yeah. So. Well, a lot of my setup here is set up for RGB, and then I have Toslink connector that comes out to the receiver. So I kind of prefer that. I know I can run HDMI to the receiver and output out of that, but it's just I like everything to be kind of all the same. I actually designed a analog to Toslink board for these consoles that like the Sega Genesis, which you can't get digital audio out of that. Right. So I've actually created an analog Toslink board which will pass SPDIF out. Just for it's not going to add any value. It's not going to make it sound any better. but at least makes my kind of whole setup easier, I guess.
Well, I wouldn't agree 100%. So if it's not going to make it sound any better than something like with really great shielded audio cables on it.
Yeah.
But so much of the issues that people run into with audio happen from the back of the console out, which just isn't an issue with Toslink. So,
yeah.
I could actually see that, especially if you were to do something like take the Mega Amp and then add an A to D converter on that. So now that would actually be a massive improvement in quality. Because well, not on the Genesis 1 originals, but on the Genesis 2s and everything that have terrible audio. Yeah, you would actually notice a big difference, and there would be zero analog hiss almost zero analog hiss coming down on the Toslink.
Yeah, it depends if I can get that, put right on the board right next to where those analog signals come out. There'd almost be nothing.
Yeah.
No interference. But that's something that kind of, like I said, it's on the. I've got a board made up, just untested. It probably works because it's a pretty simple design. Which I'll probably get to it eventually. I actually did have a board, one of the RGB bypasses I designed, that also did a one switch overclock. So you'd switch it, and it would actually halt the CPU and then overclock it, all in one thing. So you wouldn't actually have to have two switches.
Oh, cool.
But that was kind of just.
To be honest, I never messed with Genesis overclocking. What's the result? Does everything just play faster, or do you get better frame rates?
Yeah, it was more for just when Sonic, you get so many slowdowns when you get a lot of rings.
Yeah.
That's kind of it's pretty noticeable and pretty. I don't want to say annoying, and I'm not even sure how Sonic CD even was able to be released with its slowdowns. You play that boss level with the water, and it is just like this got through, quality control. I mean, they didn't say like, hey, this boss is just not possible. It's making our console look like shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I actually really love the Christian Whitehead version of that. Even playing through like an Apple TV where there's got to be some kind of lag and just added through that. I actually love it. I would rather play it on that than on the Sega CD in many cases. So good luck finding a lot of Sega CDs that are reliable.
Yeah, I've got a Model 1 that I got it from Goodwill, and it's so far kicking pretty good.
I had a Model 1 that was absolutely flawless, and then we took it apart so Evan, the photographer, could take pictures for Wikipedia. Yeah. And then somehow or another, putting it back together, the gears must not have aligned perfect on the tray. So we plugged it in, turned it on, opened the tray, close it, tray comes back out. Close it, tray comes back out. Yeah, I know what that is. So I ordered a new band, and I'm going to have to take it all apart and line up the gears again. So just ridiculous. Whoever thought that shit was a good idea, I don't know. There's so many. When I worked for that one company, there were many, many times where we'd all be in a room together, and somebody would go, "Wait, why the hell did we do it that way? Yeah, why did we? Oh," and then we'd go back and realize, no, that's actually the perfect way to do it. It just seems a little weird. But there was only one or two moments where we all looked at each other like, what were we thinking? Why would we do that? It was very rare, and we usually caught it way before even pre-production, even before prototyping. So whoever saw how you reassemble that Sega CD and thought, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I remember the first time I got because I had a Gen 2 first I fixed, and then I got like I said, I've got that one from Goodwill, and I couldn't even figure out how to open the tray up for the longest time. I was like, how does this tray open? And just no button on the front. I was like, I've never experienced this technology before. Yep. Finally got on that menu and got
and
lucky.
The Model 2 Sega CDs, isn't it weird getting it into the memory menu? Isn't there some strange thing you have to do, like there's a button combo or something?
I don't think I've ever been in the memory menu on that. Yeah,
there was something. I don't remember exactly what, but yeah, always a pain in the ass. What can you do?
Yeah.
Is that your only RGB monitor? Is that the one that you have back there?
I've got that one, and then I've got a Pioneer, the 40-inch plasma.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got one of those
480p ones.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I drove to Baltimore to get that.
Jeez, that seems worth it.
Yeah. Had to convince my wife on that one. She was like, "What are we doing right now?" Well, what's more weird is I actually had to pick up a 29-inch XBR on the way to trade for this TV.
That's
the guy wouldn't take cash for the Pioneer, but there was an XBR in a couple states over that he wanted, so it was on my way to his place. So got the XBR. It was an old like '84 Sony that the guy bought originally, and picked that up, strapped it in the back seat, and drove to him, and we swapped straight trade. I mean, it's still divided to pay for obviously for the XBR, but you know.
Jeez.
So,
did you ever measure lag on that plasma?
Well, speaking, I actually know because I don't really have a way to do that because it doesn't have speakers built into it. So my way of testing lag was, I mean, I guess I do have a camera and I could hook that PVM up, but actually, you see that new firmware that got released today, right?
I actually haven't had time to mess with it.
But yeah, you can hook up a photoresistor and test lag on it on the OSSC. So I'm gonna do that with it.
I mean, you could certainly use your GCVideo Dual in the 240p test suite. Just throw any composite video tube next to it. You don't need to use your PVM.
Yeah.
So.
I don't think I have. Well, actually, I do have that won't work. I actually have an XBR Wega, one of the 34-inch TVs, next to that. But that's not going to give a good number.
No. And if it's a tube with DVI input, like those later, then it's got 2 frames of lag in it because it uses an ATI processing chip to get it on the tube. So.
Yeah. So I'll probably do it's just kind of a pain to move that PVM around. And,
oh yeah, I know. That's how I blew my back out carrying those up and down flights of stairs. So.
Well, that sucks. This is my small little room, and a lot of my stuff can't exit this room in the house. So I can, it's kind of where I'm stuck at. So
yeah, I hear you.
But I was going to do an order on DigiKey soon, so I'll pick up that photoresistor and I'll probably start doing some lag testing on some stuff.
That's awesome.
Just for fun.
Throw up a video when you do that, because I think a lot of people would really love to see that in action.
Yeah, it's a good TV. It just has so much burn-in issues. I mean, pretty easily. If you got a start screen at the top or something, it'll stay there until you get other video going over the top of it.
Yeah, so I had that with my plasma, GT25, and that would happen all the time. So you'd have like the start screen or the life bar, you'd turn it off, you'd come back 2 days later, turn it on, it'd still be there until you watch 4 or 5 minutes of video, and then it's gone. Yeah,
it's got to have other video going over the top of it to replace it. It works pretty well for scrolling games, side-scrolling games, because you've never got static image on the screen, but it kind of sucks if you've got a black background and you've not going through the screens fast enough, because then you just see ghosted images are on it. So, but it works pretty well for Mario and stuff like that. And it looks cool, I guess. I don't know. It's a big TV.
Yeah, that's always a plus. All right, man. Well, this was a blast. Thanks for taking the time to do this. I think a lot of people that have been following your work are going to finally appreciate just digging in and figuring out what it was that you were doing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Usually, how these projects come up, people ask me to do stuff that's not out there, and I try and figure stuff out. That's kind of what I like to do. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I mean, I could build some video boards, but if those already exist, why do someone else's work when they've already got a pretty good board out there?
Yeah.
So
people to follow you, Twitter is probably the best bet, right?
Yeah, I mean Twitter. I'm on the forums too, so I get people hit me up on Assembler still sometimes, and obscure games, and shumps the shoot 'em up forum. Twitter, kind of just whatever. It kind of gets annoying actually, everybody going through different channels, because you got to check all this stuff all the time. But or email. Some people go to my website and they email me. That's fine too. But yeah, it's usually how these projects happen. People just come to me asking stuff, and then I go above and beyond because I want to do it to my stuff too.
Awesome.
So.
All right, man. Well, I'll leave links down below for where to find you, your website, your Twitter, and the rest of the stuff. And definitely come back on again. And at the very least, I'll be featuring your stuff in a couple of videos in the next year. Definitely the GameCube stuff. Hopefully the Wii when that comes out. So.
Yep. Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
All right. Bye.